Tonight's lesson is on line graphs. So this is Everyday Math lesson 7.6. And we're going to first start by just looking at different types of graphs that you've already used and are familiar with, and just comparing them and how are they different, how are they the same. So first, when we're talking about how do we collect data, there's different ways to do that. So we start by gathering information. Maybe we take a survey. And then once we have that data, how do we organize it? So that's the first step. And I'm sure you could come up with these on your own, but some of the ways that we do that, one is a line plot. And you remember, let's see if I can draw that, just a quickie example for you. So the line plot is the one that looks like this. There's a line, and then there are numbers here that represent some. Let's say, for example, you were collecting how many pets someone had, and so down here this would indicate the number of pets, and then off to on the other side you would have how many students had, let's say 1, 2, how many students had that many pets, and then it would look something like this. You would start to just organize your data. All right, and then next we have a tally chart. So the tally chart is just another way to collect or organize the data that you've collected. And if you remember, tally marks look like this, and you group them. You're gathering the information, you're grouping it in clumps of 5, little clusters of 5. Let's see, grab my eraser. Next one, stem and leaf plots. We just did those. So for a stem and leaf plot, if you remember, those, we just make a little chart like this, and over here you have 100s or 10s. Make that a little bit more clear. So the stem part is 100s or 10s, and then over here the leaves are 1s. So you would, so let's say I had 101, and then another 101, and then 102, 105, and so on. So that's stem and leaf. And then different kinds of tables. And there's a whole variety of different kinds of tables that you could use to organize information. So let's move to the next slide. So once you've collected and organized your data, it can be displayed in ways to show comparisons between the data. So what are some of the ways that it can be displayed? Bar graphs, that's one way. Another is circle graphs, and you can use percent circles to create them. We've done that. And line graphs. So those are the 3 that we're going to focus on, the graphs that we're going to focus on for today. So bar and circle graphs, they're used to display data. They have titles and data labels. They show individual values, and they show comparisons. So on the next slide, we're going to take a look at a Venn diagram that does a comparison between bar and circle graphs. So if we look over here, everything over here is just specific to bar graphs. It uses bars. You have a vertical and a horizontal axis. How's that different from circle graphs? Circle graphs use sectors, so it looks like pieces of a pie. And then the way that these 2 graphs are similar is that they compare individual values of things. There's a title, and they present the data. It's usually of more than one thing, and they have labels. So those are the ways that they're different and the ways that they're the same. So now we're going to add one more type of graph, and that's the one that you're going to focus on in class tomorrow, and that's a line graph. Okay, so if we take a look at it, again, the bar graph uses bars, okay, and the circle graph uses sectors. The line graph compares trends, and that's how it's different from these other two types of graphs. And we're going to talk in the next slide just a little bit more about what that means. Okay, but it's still the things that line graphs have in common with both bar graphs and circle graphs is that there's a title, it presents data, and you have to label them. The labels let you know what you're talking about. And then one thing that it has in common with the bar graph that it doesn't have in common with the circle graph is that there's a, oops, I just realized there's a spelling error there. See if I can correct that on the fly. I think I locked it. Anyway, there should be a C in there. Vertical and horizontal axes. Okay? So looking at this again, what does it mean that line graphs compare trends? What's a trend? So a trend is how something changes over time. So this is when a line graph is really helpful and useful. So I want you to think about and write down maybe 3 examples of some type of data that you would collect that would show some change over a period of time. So make sure you have that in your notes.